3. Said the Lord of the shining face, I shall send thee a fire when thy work is commenced. Raise thy voice to other lokas. Apply to thy father the Lord of the Lotus, Kumudapati. Kumudapati is the moon, the earth's parent, in his region of Soma Loka. Though the Pitris, Pitar or fathers, are sons of the gods, elsewhere sons of Brahma and even Rishis, they are generally known as the lunar ancestors. For his sons, thy people shall be under the rule of the fathers, Pitripati. Thy men shall be mortals, the men of the Lord of Wisdom, Buddha, Mercury. Not the sons of Soma, the moon, are immortal. Cease thy complaints. Pitripati is the lord or king of the Pitris, Yama, the god of death and the judge of mortals. The men of Buddha, Mercury, are metaphorically immortal through their wisdom. Such is the common belief of those who credit every star or planet with being inhabited. And there are men of science, Monsieur Flammarion among others, who believe in this fervently, on logical as well as on astronomical data. The moon being an inferior body to the earth, even to say nothing of other planets, the terrestrial men produced by her sons, the lunar men or ancestors, from her shell or body, cannot be immortal. They cannot hope to become real, self-conscious and intelligent men unless they are finished, so to say, by other creators. Thus in the Puranic legend, the son of the moon, Soma, is Buddha, Mercury, the intelligent and the wise, because he is the offspring of Soma, the regent of the visible moon, not of Indu, the physical moon. Thus Mercury is the elder brother of the earth, metaphorically, his step-brother, so to say, the offspring of spirit, while she, the earth, is the progeny of the body. These allegories have a deeper and more scientific meaning astronomically and geologically than our modern physicists are willing to admit. The whole cycle of the first war in heaven, the Taraka Maya, is as full of philosophical as of cosmogonical and astronomical truths. One can trace therein the biographies of all the planets by the history of their gods and rulers. Usanas, Sukra or Venus, the bosom friend of Soma and the foe of Brihaspati, Jupiter, the instructor of the gods, whose wife Tara or Taraka had been carried away by the moon, Soma, of whom he begat Buddha, took also an active part in this war against the gods and forthwith was degraded into a demon, Asura, deity, and so he remains to this day. Note: Usanas Sukra or Venus is our Lucifer, the morning star, of course. The ingenuity of all this allegory in its manifold meanings is great indeed. Thus Brihaspati, the planet Jupiter, or Brahmanaspati, is in the Rig Veda a deity who is the symbol and the prototype of the exoteric or ritualistic worship. He is priest sacrifice, suppliant, and the medium through which the prayers of mortals reach the gods. He is the Purohita, a family priest, or court chaplain of the Hindu Olympus, and the spiritual guru of the gods. Soma is the mystery god and presides over the mystic and occult nature in man and the universe. Tara, the priest's wife, who symbolizes the worshipper, prefers esoteric truth to their mere shell, exotericism. Hence she is shown as carried off by Soma. Now Soma is the sacred juice of that name, giving mystic visions and trance revelations, the result of which union is Buddha, wisdom, Mercury, Hermes, etc., etc. That science, in short, which to this day is proclaimed by the Brihaspatis of theology as devilish and satanic. What wonder that by expanding the cycle of this allegory we find Christian theology espousing the quarrel of the Hindu gods, and regarding Usanas, Lucifer, who helped Soma against that ancient personification of ritualistic worship, Brahmanaspati, the lord of the Brahmans, now become Jupiter Jehovah, as Satan, the enemy of God. End of note. Here the word men refers to the celestial men, or what are called in India the Pitar or Pitris, the fathers, the progenitors of men. This does not remove the seeming difficulty in view of modern hypotheses of the teaching which shows these progenitors or ancestors creating the first human Adams out of their sides as astral shadows. And though it is an improvement on Adam's rib, still geological and climatic difficulties will be brought forward. Such, however, is the teaching of occultism. Verse 3 continued. Thy 7 skins are yet on thee. Thou art not ready. Thy men are not ready. Man's organism was adapted in every race to its surroundings. The first root race was as ethereal as ours is material. The progeny of the 7 creators who evolved the 7 primordial atoms surely required no purified gases to breathe and live upon. See part 3 of this volume. Note, as shown elsewhere, it is only the heavenly man, Adam Kadmon, of the first chapter of Genesis, who is made in the image and likeness of God. Adam of chapter 2 is not said to be made in that image, nor in the divine likeness before he ate of the forbidden fruit. The former Adam is the Sephirothal host. The second Adam is the mindless first human root race. The third Adam is the race that separated, whose eyes are opened. End of note. Therefore, however strongly the impossibility of this teaching may be urged by the devotees of modern science, the occultist maintains that the case was as stated aeons of years before, even before the evolution of the Lemurian, the first physical man, which itself took place 18 million years ago. Note, for a discussion of the scientific objections to the views and figures here enunciated, the reader is referred to the addenda which form part 3 of this book. End of note. Preliminary evolution is described in one of the books of Jhana as the commentaries thereon in this wise. Archaic scripture teaches that at the commencement of every local kalpa, or round, the earth is reborn, as the human jiva, monad, when passing into a new womb, gets recovered with a new body, so does the jiva of the earth. It gets a more perfect and solid covering with each round after re-emerging once more from the matrix of space into objectivity. From a comment. This process is attended, of course, by the throes of the new birth or geological convulsions. Thus, the only reference to it is contained in one verse of the volume of the book of John before us, where it says, verse 4, And after great throes, she, the earth, cast off her old 3 and put on her new 7 skins, and stood in her first 1. This refers to the growth of the earth, whereas in the stanza treating of the first round it is said, given in the commentary, quote, after the changeless, avikara, immutable nature, or essence, saidakarupa, had awakened and changed, differentiated, into a state of causality, avayakta, and from cause, karana, had become its own discrete effect, vyakta. From invisible it became visible, the smallest of the small, the most atomic of atoms, or anyasam, became one and the many, ikanikarupa, and producing the universe produced also the fourth loka, our earth, in the garland of the 7 lotuses. The acuta then became the acuta. Note: acuta is an almost untranslatable term. It means that which is not subject to fall or change for the worse, the unfalling, and it is the reverse of kyuta, the fallen. The Dhyanis who incarnate in the human forms of the 3rd root race and endow them with intellect, manas, are called the kyuta, for they fall into generation. End of note. The earth is said to cast off her old 3 skins, because this refers to the 3 preceding rounds she has already passed through, the present being the 4th round out of the 7. At the beginning of every new round, after a period of obscuration, the earth, as do also the other 6 earths, casts off, or is supposed to cast off, her old skins as the serpent does. Therefore she is called in the Aitareya Brahmana the Sarparaini, the queen of the serpents, and the mother of all that moves. The 7 skins, in the first of which she now stands, refer to the 7 geological changes which accompany and correspond to the evolution of the 7 root races of humanity. Stanza 2, which speaks of this round, begins with a few words of information concerning the age of our earth. The chronology will be given in its place. In the commentary appended to the stanza, 2 personages are mentioned, Narada and Asuramaya, especially the latter. All the calculations are attributed to this archaic celebrity, and what follows will make the reader superficially acquainted with some of these figures. 2 antediluvian astronomers. To the mind of the Eastern student of occultism, 2 figures are indissolubly connected with mystic astronomy, chronology, and their cycles. 2 grand and mysterious figures, towering like 2 giants in the archaic past, emerge before him whenever he has to refer to yugas and kalpas. When, at what period of prehistory they lived, none save a few men in the world know, or ever can know, with that certainty which is required by exact chronology. It may have been 100,000 years ago. It may have been 1,000,000, for all that the outside world will ever know. The mystic West and Freemasonry talk loudly of Enoch and Hermes. The mystic East speaks of Narada, the old Vedic rishi, and of Asuramaya, the Atlantean. It has already been hinted that all the incomprehensible characters in the Mahabharata and the Puranas, Narada, the son of Brahma in Matsya Purana, the progeny of Kasyapa, and the daughter of Daksha in the Vishnu Purana, is the most mysterious. He is referred to by the honorable title of Deva Rishi, divine Rishi, more than a demigod, by Parasara, and yet he is cursed by Daksha and even by Brahma. He informs Kansa that Bhagavat, or Vishnu in exotericism, would incarnate in the 8th child of Devaki, and thus brings the wrath of the Indian Herod upon Krishna's mother, and then, from the cloud on which he is seated, invisible as a true Manasaputra, he lauds Krishna in delight at the avatar's feat of killing the monster Kesim. Narada is here, there, and everywhere, and yet none of the Puranas gives the true characteristics of this great enemy of physical procreation. Whatever those characteristics may be in Hindu esotericism, Narada, who is called in cis-Himalayan occultism Peshhun, the messenger, or the Greek Angelos, is the sole confidant and the executor of the universal decrees of karma and Adi-Bhuj, a kind of active and ever-incarnating Logos who leads and guides human affairs from the beginning to the end of the Kalpa. Peshhun is a general, not a special Hindu possession. He is the mysterious guiding intelligent power which gives the impulse to and regulates the impetus of cycles, kalpas, and universal events. Note: this is perhaps the reason why in the Bhagavad Gita we are told that Brahma had communicated to Narada in the beginning that all men whatsoever, even mlekas, outcasts and barbarians, might know the true nature of Vasudeva and learn to have faith in that deity. End of note. He is Karma's visible adjuster on a general scale, the inspirer and the leader of the greatest heroes of this Manvantara. In the exoteric works he is referred to by some very uncomplimentary names, such as Kali Karaka, Strife Maker, Kapivaktra, Monkey-Faced, and even Pishuna, the Spy, though elsewhere he is called Deva Brahma. Even Sir W. Jones was strongly impressed with this mysterious character from what he gathered in the Sanskrit studies. He compares him to Hermes and Mercury and calls him the eloquent messenger of the gods. All this led the late Dr. Keenly in Book of God, on the ground that the Hindus believe him to be a great rishi, who is forever wandering about the earth giving good counsel, to see in him one of his 12 messiahs. He was perhaps not so far off the real track as some imagine. What Narada really is cannot be explained in print, nor would the modern generations of the profane gather much from the information. But it may be remarked that if there is in the Hindu pantheon a deity which resembles Jehovah in tempting by suggestion of thoughts and hardening of the hearts of those whom he would make his tools and victims, it is Narada. Only with the latter it is no desire to obtain a pretext for plaguing, and thus showing that I am the Lord God. Nor is it through any ambitious or selfish motive, but verily to serve and guide universal progress and evolution. Narada is one of the few prominent characters, save some gods, in the Puranas who visits the so-called nether or infernal regions, Patala. Whether or not it was from his intercourse with the thousand-headed Sesha, the serpent who bears the 7 Patalas and the entire world like a diadem upon his head, and who is the great teacher of astronomy, that Narada learned all that he knew. Certain it is that he surpasses Garga's guru in his knowledge of cyclic intricacies. Note: Sesha, who is also Ananta, the infinite, and the cycle of eternity in esotericism, is credited with having given his astronomical knowledge to Garga, the oldest astronomer of India, who propitiated him, and forthwith knew all about the planets and how to read omens. End of note. It is he who has charge of our progress and national weal or woe. It is he who brings on wars and puts an end to them. In the old stanzas, Pershun is credited with having calculated and recorded all the astronomical and cosmic cycles to come, and with having taught the science to the first gazers at the starry vault. And it is Asura Maya who is said to have based all his astronomical works upon those records, to have determined the duration of all the past geological and cosmical periods, and the length of all the cycles to come, till the end of this life cycle, or the end of the 7th race. There is a work among the secret books called The Mirror of Futurity, wherein all the kalpas within kalpas and cycles within the bosom of Sesha, or infinite time, are recorded. This work is ascribed to Pershun Narada. There is another old work which is attributed to various Atlanteans. It is these two records which furnish us with the figures of our cycles and the possibility of calculating the date of cycles to come. The chronological calculations which will presently be given are, however, those of the Brahmins as explained further on, but most of them are also those of the secret doctrine. The chronology and computations of the Brahmin initiates are based upon the zodiacal records of India, and the works of the above-mentioned astronomer and magician Asura Maya. The Atlantean zodiacal records cannot err, as they were compiled under the guidance of those who first taught astronomy, among other things, to mankind. But here again we are deliberately and recklessly facing a new difficulty. We shall be told that our statement is contradicted by science, in the person of a man regarded as a great authority in the West upon all subjects of Sanskrit literature, Professor Albrecht Weber of Berlin. This, to our great regret, cannot be helped, and we are ready to maintain what is now stated. Asura Maya, to whom the epic tradition points as the earliest astronomer in Aryavarta, one to whom the sun god imparted the knowledge of the stars in propria persona, as Dr. Weber himself states, is identified by him in some very mysterious way with the Ptolemaios of the Greeks. No more valid reason is given for this identification than that this Latin name, Ptolemaios, as we see from the inscription of Piyadasi, became the Indian Turamaya, out of which the name Asura Maya might very easily grow. No doubt it might, but the vital question is, are there any good proofs that it has thus grown? The only evidence that it is given for it is that it must be so, since this Maya is distinctly assigned to Romakapura in the West. The Maya is evident since no Sanskritist among Europeans can tell where the locality of the Romakapura was, except indeed that it was somewhere in the West. Anyhow, as no member of the Asiatic Society or Western Orientalist will ever listen to Brahmanical teaching, it is useless to take the objections of European Orientalists into consideration. Romakapura was in the West certainly, since it was part and parcel of the lost continent of Atlantis. And it is equally certain that it is Atlantis which is assigned in the Hindu Puranas as the birthplace of Asura Maya, as great a magician as he was an astrologer and an astronomer. Moreover, Professor Weber refuses to assign any great antiquity to the Indian zodiac and feels inclined to think that the Hindus never knew of a zodiac at all till they had borrowed one from the Greeks. Note: even the Maya Indians of Guatemala had their zodiac from untold antiquity, and primitive man acted in the same manner independently of time or locality in every age, observes a French writer. End of note. This, Professor Weber's statement, clashes with the most ancient traditions of India, and must therefore be ignored, vide the zodiac and its antiquity. We are the more justified in ignoring it, as the learned German professor himself tells us in the introduction to his work, History of Sanskrit Literature, that in addition to the natural obstacles which impede investigation in India, there still prevails a dense mist of prejudices and preconceived opinions hovering over the land and enfolding it as with a veil. Unquote. Caught in that veil, it is no wonder that Dr. Weber should himself have been led into involuntary errors. Let us hope that he knows better now. Now, whether Asura Maya is to be considered a modern myth, a personage who flourished in the day of the Macedonian Greeks, or as that which is claimed to be by the occultists, in any case his calculations agree entirely with those of the secret records. From fragments of immensely old works attributed to the Atlantean astronomer and found in southern India, the calendar elsewhere mentioned was compiled by two very learned Brahmins in 1884 and 1885. Note: the Tirukanda Pankana for the Kali Yuga, 4986, by Chintamani Raganaracharya, son of the famous government astronomer of Madras, and Tartakamala Venkata Krishna Rao. End of note. The work is proclaimed by the best pundits as faultless from the Brahmanical standpoint, and thus far relates to the chronology of the orthodox teachings. If we compare its statements with those made several years earlier in Isis Unveiled, with the fragmentary teachings published by some theosophists, and with the present data derived from the sacred books of occultism, the whole will be found to agree perfectly, save in some details which may not be explained, for secrets of higher initiation, as unknown to the writer as they are to the reader, would have to be revealed, and that cannot be done. But see chronology of the Brahmins at the close of stanza 2. The next chapter is stanza 2. Nature unaided fails.